What if I told you the Finnish government just added a shocking new charge against Simon Ekpa, not for his activism, but for allegedly pretending to be a lawyer years ago in his ex-wife's office? And what if I told you, at the same time, Nigerian courts are blocking human rights observers like Omoyele Sowore from entering Nnamdi Kanu's courtroom, citing space issues, on the exact day the world is watching? This is not just a coincidence. This is a coordinated storm. From Finland to Nigeria, it looks like the noose is tightening on the two most controversial voices behind the Biafran movement. But there's more. A US-based professor just reignited Nnamdi Kanu's boldest claim, that Muhammadu Buhari died in 2017 and was replaced by a body double. Now, even his divorce with Aisha Buhari has surfaced as evidence. And just when you thought things couldn't get any crazier, the United States of Biafra is issuing passports, while cultural tension erupts in Ghana over an Igbo king. This is not just news. This is the battle for identity, power, and truth. Stay with us, because what happens next could change everything. The Pihajoki District Court in Finland has quietly added a new charge against Simon Ekpa for violating the Lawyers Act, accusing him of acting as a legal advisor without proper qualifications during his time at his ex-wife Marian Sakajavi's law firm. Meanwhile, in Nigeria, the Federal High Court in Abuja officially barred Nigerian activist Omoyele Sowore and some of Nnamdi Kanu's lawyers from attending the July 18, 2025 court session, citing space constraints, a move widely criticized as an attempt to suppress media attention and legal support. Nigerian-American professor Farouk Kapirogi revealed that late former President Muhammadu Buhari and Aisha Buhari had divorced years before his death, fueling long-standing claims by Nnamdi Kanu that Buhari had died in 2017 and was replaced by a body double. A professor and supporter of the United States of Biafra calculated that Simon Ekpa has now spent 8 months in custody at the Kilmakoski Correctional Center, possibly facing 1 full year if no release is granted soon. The United States of Biafra has officially opened an online portal for applications for identification and international travel documents, including a USB passport, a symbolic move asserting their sovereignty efforts. However, the protest in Ghana over the installation of an Igbo king by the Nigerian community in Accra has been peacefully resolved. The king clarified he is only a cultural leader of the Igbo community and not a ruler over Ghanaians. A local government in Lagos State has renamed several streets that bore foreign names. While the motive wasn't explicitly stated, it was revealed that Tinubu's son, Seyi Tinubu, is married to Layal Jade Tinubu, who is half Igbo and half Lebanese, bringing unexpected ethnic and cultural connections into Nigeria's political elite. Following a critical article accusing Nnamdi Kanu of brainwashing southeastern Nigerians, IPOB's lawyer publicly threatened legal action, defending Nnamdi Kanu's reputation and reaffirming the movement's legitimacy. The story currently gripping both Nigeria and Finland, and increasingly echoing through global corridors of human rights, concerns the complex, high-stakes legal struggles of two of the most recognized names associated with the Biafran movement for self-determination, Nnamdi Kanu and Simon Ekpa. Their names have come to symbolize resistance, agitation, and the call for the rebirth of a sovereign Biafran state in southeastern Nigeria. In the latest development, we are presented with new legal twists from two different countries, but connected by a common ideological thread. The first problem that clearly emerges in this story is the introduction of a fresh legal charge against Simon Nyoku Ekpa in the Pihajoki District Court in Finland. This charge accuses Simon Nyoku Ekpa of violating the Lawyers Act, specifically for allegedly acting as a legal advisor without the proper professional qualifications during his time with his ex-wife Marian Sakajavi's law firm. This addition to his existing list of charges marks a critical turning point in his legal battle. For many Biafrans who had followed the case closely, this was not just about another technical violation. It provoked serious emotional reactions because it gave the impression that the legal system in Finland might be stretching every possible interpretation of the law to find new grounds to extend his detention. The problem of Simon Nyoku Ekpa's prolonged detention is now in its 8th month. He has remained in custody at the Kilmakoski Correctional Center without full conviction on any of the original charges. According to supporters and legal observers within the United States of Biafra, there is now a real fear that he could end up spending an entire year in jail if his bail application or final trial outcomes are further delayed. The latest charge appears to prolong that legal entanglement. What caused this situation is a mixture of factors. The growing tension between the Finnish government and Simon Nyoku Ekpa's public political activities, especially his leadership of a movement calling for the independence of southeastern Nigeria, has made him a controversial figure not just in Finland but globally. Simon Nyoku Ekpa has used social media to amplify messages about the United States of Biafra, called for civil disobedience in Nigeria through sit-at-home protests, and aligned himself ideologically with Nnamdi Kanu's earlier Biafran campaigns. His critics call him divisive and reckless. His supporters call him a freedom fighter and the voice of a suppressed people. In the middle stands the law, trying to determine if his actions have legal consequences under Finnish jurisdiction. This particular charge for violating the Lawyers Act seems to emerge from his past association with his former wife, Marian Sakajavi, who reportedly once ran a law firm in Finland. The court now believes that during that time, Simon Nyoku Ekpa may have performed duties that only legally licensed lawyers are allowed to do in Finland. It is not yet clear whether this was a technical oversight, a misinterpretation, or a deliberate offense. But to those advocating for Simon Nyoku Ekpa's release, the charge feels like another move to keep him in custody, especially as many of his supporters believe his prosecution is politically motivated. At the same time, this Finnish legal situation is escalating. Another controversial decision has erupted in Nigeria. The Federal High Court in Abuja, which is currently handling the terrorism and treason case against Nnamdi Kanu, announced that activist and presidential candidate Omoyele Sowore, along with some members of Nnamdi Kanu's legal team, were officially barred from attending the July 18, 2025 court session. The reason cited by the court was space constraints. But that explanation has not satisfied most Nigerians, and certainly not the followers of the indigenous people of Biafra or the wider human rights community. The restriction placed on Omoyele Sowore is being seen as more than just a matter of courtroom logistics. To many, it signals an attempt to control who can attend the trial and what kind of media coverage and public scrutiny the proceedings might receive. Omoyele Sowore, known for his outspoken activism and founder of the Sahara Reporters news platform, has consistently attended and reported on the court appearances of Nnamdi Kanu. His presence, both physical and journalistic, has served as a mirror, reflecting the courtroom activities back to the Nigerian public and to international audiences. By barring him and some of Nnamdi Kanu's lawyers from attending the July 18th session, the court has inadvertently drawn even more attention to the trial. Many observers believe this is a deliberate move to reduce transparency. It has provoked public anger, especially among those who view Nnamdi Kanu's trial as a politically motivated attempt to silence a voice of resistance against the Nigerian state. This entire chain of events, Simon Nyoku Ekpa's extended incarceration in Finland, and the court-imposed restrictions on observers in Nigeria, are feeding into a growing narrative among Biafran supporters that the movement is under coordinated international pressure. But that's not all. A revelation by Nigerian-American professor Farouk Kaparogi added even more emotional and political fuel to the ongoing storm. Farouk Kaparogi publicly stated that former Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari and Aisha Buhari had long been divorced before the president's official death announcement. This revelation seemed to support an earlier controversial claim made by Nnamdi Kanu many years ago, that Muhammadu Buhari had died in 2017 and was secretly replaced by a body double, an imposter from Sudan, allegedly named Jubril. At the time, the claim was widely dismissed as a conspiracy theory. However, Farouk Kaparogi's statement appears to give new life to that theory, at least in the eyes of Nnamdi Kanu's followers, who now believe that many of his warnings about deception at the highest level of the Nigerian government were true all along. This revelation, if proven true, raises severe questions about Nigeria's political transparency and fuels the belief that the Biafran struggle is not merely about secession, but also about exposing national dishonesty and elite manipulation. These developments bring significant emotional reinforcement to the Biafran community. While all this is happening, the United States of Biafra has taken a bold symbolic step forward. An online portal has been launched that allows citizens and supporters to apply for identification and travel documents, including what is being referred to as the United States of Biafra passport. Though not recognized by any nation or official international body at this time, the move carries immense symbolic weight. It is an assertion of sovereignty, identity, and legitimacy by a people who have long felt excluded from full participation in the Nigerian nation-state. Critics may call it performative or legally meaningless, but for the Biafran movement, it is a declaration that they are prepared to function as a separate entity, complete with administrative functions and symbolic representations of statehood. The introduction of such a passport means a lot more than just travel documentation. It means hope, it means belonging, and it means resistance through bureaucracy. A quiet, paper-based revolution against the Nigerian state. Meanwhile, outside Nigeria's borders, another drama quietly unfolded in Ghana. In Accra, the installation of a traditional Igbo king by the Nigerian Igbo community sparked protest among local Ghanaian citizens. The concern among locals was that the newly installed Igbo king might attempt to wield political or territorial influence in Ghana. However, the tension was quickly resolved when the installed leader clarified that he held only a cultural title within the Nigerian Igbo community residing in Ghana, and did not claim authority over Ghanaian land or governance. This calm resolution avoided further ethnic misunderstanding and demonstrated that such cultural symbols, while sensitive, can coexist in multi-ethnic settings when handled diplomatically. Back in Nigeria, a quieter cultural shift was also taking place. A local government in Lagos State decided to rename several streets that had previously borne foreign names. Although the motive behind this renaming exercise was not fully explained by the authorities, many suspect that it forms part of a larger campaign to strengthen local identity and move away from colonial legacies. Interestingly, this move brings public curiosity to a different kind of intersection. the ethnic composition of Nigeria's political elite. It has been revealed that the son of Nigeria's current president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, whose name is Seyi Tinubu, is married to a woman named Layal Jade Tinubu. Layal Jade Tinubu is of mixed heritage, with one parent being Igbo and the other Lebanese. This revelation complicates the frequently simplified narratives of ethnic division in Nigeria. It shows that within elite circles, interethnic and even international marriages are part of Nigeria's evolving social fabric. What does this mean for the Biafran movement? For some, it confirms the idea that ethnicity is not always a barrier at the top, while it remains a weapon of division at the bottom of society. For others, it simply underscores the hypocrisy that often surrounds Nigeria's power structure. In a final twist to this already intense set of events, a recent article that strongly criticized Nnamdi Kanu accused him of brainwashing the people of southeastern Nigeria. This article drew immediate legal response from the legal team of the indigenous people of Biafra. A lead lawyer representing the group publicly threatened to sue the publication and its writers for defamation, defending the reputation of Nnamdi Kanu. The lawyer insisted that the movement is grounded in democratic values, peaceful self-determination, and the protection of cultural identity. This legal defense marks a shift in how the indigenous people of Biafra is choosing to respond to criticism. Rather than resorting only to protests or public statements, they are now engaging through legal channels, challenging misinformation through the courts, and pushing for recognition in diplomatic ways. This approach adds a layer of legitimacy to the movement and helps reposition it in the global arena as more than just a group of angry secessionists. It portrays them as citizens demanding to be heard within the framework of law and reason. In summary, the current situation involving Simon Yoku Ekpa and Nnamdi Kanu is a powerful reminder that the struggle for Biafra is not only a political or ideological movement, it is a deeply legal, emotional, social, and even spiritual process. From the small courtroom in Finland to the High Court in Abuja, from online passport portals to legal threats against defamation, from Ghanaian cultural conflicts to Nigerian street name changes, the spirit of Biafra continues to stir hearts and raise questions about belonging, power, and the future of the African continent. The consequences of these developments will depend on how governments, courts, activists, and communities respond. There are possible solutions to the problems identified here. For Simon Njoku Ekpa, the solution lies in a fair and timely legal process in Finland that examines evidence without political bias. For Nnamdi Kanu, the solution may lie in his release or acquittal based on insufficient evidence, or at least in ensuring he is granted full access to legal representation and public observation. For the broader Biafran movement, the solution might involve stronger diplomatic engagement, international mediation, and a national dialogue in Nigeria to resolve long-standing grievances. These solutions are not easy, but they are not impossible. What is needed is the political will, the legal clarity, and the human empathy to make them happen. As we move forward, the days ahead, especially around the July 18, 2025 court session, will shape not only the lives of Nnamdi Kanu and Simon Njoku Ekpa, but the fate of an entire generation of people who continue to carry the dream of Biafra in their hearts. The world is watching, and history is quietly writing itself through the hands of judges, the voices of supporters, and the stubborn hope of those who believe that freedom, though delayed, is never denied. To fully understand the intensity of what is happening today with Simon Njoku Ekpa in Finland and Nnamdi Kanu in Nigeria, One must first appreciate the deep psychological wound that the Biafran War left behind in the hearts of millions of southeastern Nigerians. The scars of that war, fought between 1967 and 1970, remain etched in memory, passed from one generation to another. Over 3 million people died, many from starvation, disease, and mass killings. Families were torn apart, villages destroyed, and entire communities were left in trauma. The promise of Biafra was extinguished not just through military defeat, but through the sheer weight of human suffering. Yet the idea of Biafra never truly died. It lived quietly in songs, prayers, memories, and whispered conversations in markets and homes across the southeast. What Nnamdi Kanu and later Simon Nyoku Ekpa did was to give a loud voice to those quiet memories. They revived a dream that many had buried out of fear or exhaustion. By using modern tools like radio broadcasts, social media, and court activism, they brought back into mainstream conversation the notion that southeastern Nigeria had been systematically marginalized and excluded from the benefits of the Nigerian project. Their movement spoke not only to the wounds of war, but to the day-to-day frustrations of unemployment, police brutality, economic exclusion, and cultural erasure. It is this emotional and generational charge that explains why so many people continue to rally behind them even when the risks are high. But dreams, when publicized, often provoke powerful resistance. The Nigerian state, with its long history of centralized control, perceived the Biafran revival not as a cultural or political question, but as a direct threat to national unity. Successive governments have tried to extinguish the movement through arrests, media blackouts, proscription of organizations, and, according to some reports, even military operations in civilian areas. The legal case against Nnamdi Kanu is the most visible form of this resistance. Nnamdi Kanu's arrest, extraordinary rendition, detention, and trial have turned into an ongoing political crisis. Human rights groups, including Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, have criticized the Nigerian government's handling of his case, particularly the secrecy surrounding his rearrest in Kenya and his forced return to Nigeria in 2021. Many view it as a breach of international law and due process. His prolonged detention without a final verdict, multiple court adjournments, denial of open trial observation, and now the barring of figures like Omoyele Sowore from court have all contributed to growing suspicion that the government fears what an acquittal might mean. A renewed call for Biafra, backed by a legally vindicated hero. But even as Nnamdi Kanu's fate is debated in Nigeria, Simon Njoku Ekpa's battle in Finland is pulling international attention into the heart of the Biafran struggle. The Finnish government's response to Simon Njoku Ekpa is cautious but firm. While Finland has a reputation for upholding human rights and transparency, it also does not tolerate any form of illegal political activity on its soil, especially if that activity is believed to incite unrest elsewhere. The challenge for Finland is to balance its legal traditions with the complexities of an African liberation movement that operates from European ground. For Biafran supporters, Simon Njoku Ekpa's prosecution is viewed as a political message. They ask why his calls for sit-at-home protests in Nigeria should fall under criminal investigation in Finland, when other political activists around the world use similar methods to demand justice. They argue that Finland, by detaining Simon Njoku Ekpa for over 8 months now, risks aligning with oppressive forces against the will of an oppressed people. These supporters have held protests in front of Finnish embassies in Canada, the United States of America, South Korea, and Germany, demanding his release. What makes Simon Yoku Ekpa's case more complicated is that the charges against him keep shifting. Initially, he was accused of encouraging unrest through his broadcasts. Then came financial investigations into tax evasion. Now, with this new charge for violating the Lawyers Act through his past work in Marian Sakajavi's law firm, there is growing concern that the Finnish system is under pressure, whether politically, diplomatically or emotionally, to keep him imprisoned for as long as possible. Simon Yoku Ekpa's supporters say that even if he did act as a legal advisor without credentials, the timing and sudden emergence of the charge raise suspicion. They ask why it took so long for such a charge to surface, especially now that his earlier legal grounds for detention are weakening. Critics argue that if Finland is truly committed to due process, it should expedite his trial, offer him fair bail conditions, and treat the case with judicial clarity rather than political caution. What started as a courtroom matter is now a referendum on truth. The future of Nnamdi Kanu and Simon Ekpa is not just about their personal liberty. It is about the liberty of millions who believe their story is being erased, their rights denied, and their hopes buried beneath politics and bureaucracy. The struggle continues, the questions remain, and history is waiting for answers. This is the end of our news update. Please click the icon on the top right corner of your screen to watch my next video. You will enjoy it. I will see you again in my next update. Enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye for now.